we need to draw a timeline. Mm-hmm. So are you guys comfortable with depreciation timelines and how they work?
No.
Okay. So, let me go down to the... Okay. So it's kind of like this, where you draw out like a timeline of all of the major events. So when you bought it, when you sold it, and then anything that happened in the middle. This is not that important for stuff like the van, but it'll be very important for stuff like if you did Barry's batting cages, for instance. Mm-hmm. When the depreciation was calculated by units of output, it pays to know when you sold it and how much it had been used for up until that point. So it says it had a residual value of 10,500, which means that the total depreciable value will be 45,000 minus 10,500. Wilshire assigned a useful life of 100,000.
What does residual value mean?
Residual value means that at the end of when you've depreciated, no matter how much you depreciate this item, the value cannot go below 10.5k, meaning you will always find somebody on the marketplace willing to buy it for that much. Okay. Wilshire assigned a useful life of 100,000. When you see a useful life assigned in kilometers or anything, you know you're using units of output. Okay. On Feb 4th, the van refused to start, repaired for $700 in cash. So they're essentially giving us the fact that he paid for it with cash. So we're going to right away go ahead and, what are we going to do, debit or credit?
For the 45.
For the 700, because it says he spent 700 in the repairs.
Oh, credit.
Credit cash, right? And we will debit
the repairs.
Repairs expense, exactly. Yeah. So he also says that he sold the van on April 3rd for this much in cash. Van had been driven 7,500 kilometers up until the point that it was sold. So now we know that it was purchased upon incorporation, and it was only driven 7.5 thousand kilometers up this fiscal year. So obviously it was depreciated more before that. Mm-hmm. So we're going to go all the way down to the balance sheet, and we're going to look at the AD for the van. So it says over here that it's 11,283. So that's going to be the opening balance for the AD van. Then, let me see if I have an account for that. Otherwise I can make one right now. Okay, yeah. So the opening balance was 11,283. Then we calculate depreciation based on units of output method. So the method to do that would just be to get the total depreciable value, which is 45,000 minus 10,500. Mm-hmm. Then you divide that by the total units of output, so you divide that by 100,000. Mm-hmm. Then you get how much it depreciates for 1 unit used, multiply that by the number of units used, which is 7,500, and that's how you get the dollar amount for the depreciation.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. And then you do the same thing, a debit depreciation expense, credit AD, and then you also want to throw this into your AD for van, just so you can total all of it up. So when it comes to gain or loss for sale, I believe we did this in, was it Pacific? Or it was one of the cases where we sold something and we had to see whether we gained or lost money on sales. And the way to do that is to see whether, if you'd sold it on the marketplace, which is technically why you depreciate things. So if I'd sold this on Kijiji, for instance, would I have gotten a better deal than this dude gave me? Right? So in order to calculate gain or loss, you get the net book value, mm-hmm. and you multiply that by the historical cost minus the accumulated depreciation, and you subtract the sales price. Now, what you're trying to figure out if your answer is a negative, it means the sales price was greater than what you would have received on the marketplace, and if it was lesser, if you have a positive value, it means there was some amount of value that the guy who bought from you didn't pay for, and that's the value that you're going to move into gain or loss on sale. So that's what I did here. So we know that the total AD from here, we know the trial balance for AD, which is the total AD on the truck on the van up till this point. then I've put the gain or loss formula here. I would highly recommend putting this on your cheat sheet. So you have 45 minus total accumulated depreciation minus 26k, which is what he was paid for the truck. Now, since this is a positive value, this means that this amount was not covered by any of the price, by anything that he was paid. So this means that we've made a loss on sale. So we debit cash for the full 26k because he paid us in cash. We debit AD because AD is a credit account. So if you want to zero it out, you debit it. You credit your asset account because you're taking it off your books. And then you debit your loss on sale because you're trying to increase that amount because that's an expense for you basically.
So it should be like negative?
Yeah, if it's so yeah, that makes sense, right?
Yeah, okay.
Next up, we have the new van. So we purchased 451k in cash. So we know right away we're going to credit cash for this amount. Assigned a residual value of 14.5, useful life of 115. And the new van was found to have a recoverable amount. So do you guys want to take a crack at this calculation?
Yeah, so we subtract 14,500 from 51,000.
Yeah.
And then 115,000 kilometers is the output, right? So then was it, we take that amount that you subtracted and then do you divide it by 115,000?
Yeah.
And then you divide it by, is it 20s? No.
So when you divide it by 115,000, that number is how much
You have to
value
multiply
we-
it by
yes.
something, but I can't
You need to
remember.
multiply by 23. And the reason for that is because when you get the depreciable value and you divide it by 115, it tells you how much value the van loses every kilometer it drives. So you multiply it by the number of kilometers it's driven and then you get the total depreciation.
Okay, so you multiply it by 26,300.
Yeah, exactly. And then you'll get some dollar amount, and if that is less than 38k, then well and good, but like if it's more than 38k, which it likely will be, depreciation was 8.3, and then you subtract 51, and then, sorry, not 51, but the depreciable amount minus the 8.3, and then you get 42,000. But the recoverable value is only 38,000, which means the van, something happened to the van where it lost even more value for some reason. So we need to create an account, and it's called impairment loss. And we need to put the residual amount, so the difference between the 42,000 and the 38,000. It's not depreciation, so we've got to put that in a different account, and that's going to be called impairment loss.
Okay.
So you debit your impairment loss and you credit AD for your new van, because once again, it's not depreciation. Okay. Next up, any questions about that?
No.
Perfect. Okay, the company purchased this upon incorporation, so we're going to go down and see if there's any AD on this. So store equipment AD, we have 633. We're going to put that in our opening balance for AD, so we have it there. Then, estimated useful life to be 3 years, residual value of 150. Okay, so this is pretty much just straight up depreciation. Do you guys want to take a crack at this one?
Yeah. So you subtract 115 from 1,100, and then you divide it by, is it 1,400? Or I can't see like the
3 years.
output. Oh, I didn't see that. Okay. So do you divide it by the years or do you do months?
By 3, yeah,
Okay.
you divide it by
Divide by
3.
3, and then you multiply it by.
Do you need to multiply it by anything? If you're just trying to calculate straight line depreciation for a whole year?
So no.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're just trying to see how much it depreciates in 1 year. So for both of these transactions, very vanilla, all you do is you take your historical cost, Subtract residual value divided by useful life. That's it.
Okay.
And then of course you credit depreciation and then debit AD. So yeah, very, very straightforward process. Yeah, the exact same thing that we did.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Next up, we're going to the computer. So purchase upon incorporation is depreciated using the diminishing balance method. So the formula for diminishing balance, I don't know if I put it here. If I did. Okay, so I'll write it out. Okay, yeah, this is here. So, if you basically need to multiply it by 1 over useful life instead of dividing it by and then multiplying it by like a factor that you depreciated by. I'll go over that in more detail. But have been assigned a useful life of 3 years and residual value of 335. So the old computer was traded in for a new one that was originally priced at 1195 but was on sale. So what we need to do is once again go to the balance sheet and see what the value of the computer is. So we know it's 890. Right. So if the value of the computer is 890, so 890 minus your accumulated depreciation is oh sorry, my computer's glitching. Okay, so your 890 minus your AD needs to equal, like at minimum, the residual value, like minus all of your accumulated depreciation, has to be equal to 335. So your AD for your computer so far, the opening balance was 495. We calculated 60 because this is the diminishing balance method. So you take your 890, subtract 495 that we got from the balance sheet, multiply it by 1 over 3, and multiply it by 6 over 12. And then you get 65. So yeah. So we know that if you subtract, like you take your 890 minus 495 minus 65 for depreciation, and that gives you 329. But we know that the residual value is 335, so we cannot possibly depreciate it any below that. So we calculate the maximum depreciation that's allowed, which is like 890 minus 495 gives you 395, and then from that you subtract 335. So you know that the maximum allowable depreciation is only 60, so that's what we're going to put in the official AD column, because we cannot depreciate it any below that. And now we know that the value of the computer is 335. So next up, what we did is we traded it in for like $70, if I remember correctly. So yeah, the old computer was traded in at 70. So we know for a fact that we made a loss on this trade. And the new laptop was given a useful life of 4 years, RV250, depreciated using the same method. Okay, so to calculate the gain or loss on, sorry, not the gain or loss on trade, but to record, the steps for recording a trade is, the first thing you need to do is you need to debit the new asset that you've purchased. You need to credit cash for the selling price of the computer, which is $980, minus any benefits that you might have received from trading in. So $980 minus 70, so $910 is the cash that actually left your pocket. Then obviously you need to take the old assets off of your books. So what are the ways to do that? There's 2 steps that we need to do to take an asset off of our books.
So to clear the asset account?
Yeah, and?
Pardon?
Yeah, one
Those
step is to
two,
clear the
yeah.
asset
Yeah.
account, and the second step is to do what?
And then transfer it to cash?
No. So you're right about clearing the asset account. The second step is to clear out AD.
Oh, okay.
Right. Okay. So we clear out the asset account and we debit our AD, and then we have to debit our loss on trade, obviously, because 335 is what we should have received, but we only received 70. We credit the old computer to take it off of our books, and then we credit cash as well.
Okay.
Any questions about that? Okay. So for new laptop depreciation, pretty much the same thing. So because there's no residual value, you do 980. It's the same formula. So you just get the useful life, and then you do your depreciation expense and credit 80. Next up, moving to expenses. I have one van driver. So when we come to expenses, the first thing we need to do is we need to go to the balance sheet and put this on your cheat sheet. Go to the balance sheet, check if we have any wages payable, any expenses payable, pay them all off. Because if you didn't pay them last year, you have to pay them this year.
Okay.
And similarly, we see here as of December 31, he had not been paid for 30 of these hours. We're not going to pay him for these right now. They're going to carry into the next financial year. So we'll put them into our accounts payable or wages payable. So let's go down to the balance sheet and see if we have any payables. We do, so we have 456. So we're going to come and pay those off. So we credit cash, debit, wages payable to clear out that account. Now, to calculate how much we owe these people for wages, we know that this is the rate and they worked a total of 1,300 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So we just multiply one by the other.
Yeah.
And then we credit cash, debit, wages, expense. Now, the second thing we do is we do the same thing for this. We do 30 times the hourly rate.
Mm-hmm.
And what will be the credits and debits for that if we're not paying them right now?
So you put it into wages payable. So you debit that into wages payable, and you credit it out of. Sorry, can you go back for a second?
Oh yeah, sure.
What was it in? Oh, cash.
Yeah. Okay. So next up, we know that hired a store manager and all of that stuff, but they've just been really nice and they've given us how much they were paid on the last day of the month. So you pretty much just credit cash for the whole thing.
Okay.
That's it. Debit, wages, expenses. Now, there was insurance that was paid in full for the 2-year period. So we're going to go to the balance sheet and see if we have any prepaid insurance, which we do. So we're going to take that out of prepaid insurance, and then we're going to put that into insurance expense. And we're not going to touch cash because it's prepaid, we've already paid it, so we've already accounted for that. So you debit your insurance expense and you credit your prepaid insurance. This is the exact same process for prepaid rent as well.
Mm-hmm.
So is the concept of like prepaid insurance and rent clear?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Alright, so that's miscellaneous expenses of 172K. This is pretty much, you just debit your miscellaneous expenses account, you credit cash. That's it. Last month's rent, that was required upon signing. So, I think we skipped a transaction actually. Oh yeah, that was the 5%. So, I've had a 5% discount on the second policy. Wilshire decided to purchase only a 1-year policy, so both of them would end simultaneously. So all we need to do is we need to find out what a 5% discount would be, which is the same as multiplying it by 0.95. And then you just debit insurance expense and credit cash because we've taken advantage of that. Right. Now, it says a check paid on December 3rd to WSI's cleaning service has been entered at 717 on the bank statement, but was recorded as 771. So this is what we did with Pergola. We need to do like a mini reconciliation. So what we need to do is we need to. What does this mean? Like, what do you think this guy's? What do you guys think this means?
So they overstated how much they actually earned. So then you just subtract 717 from 771, and you credit that out of the expense. Is it? And then you put it and you debit it into cash because you actually make more than you thought.
Yep, that's exactly it. That's literally pristine. That's exactly how you do it. So I credited miscellaneous expenses because I didn't know what it would be, but you can feel free to like create a separate account if you feel so inclined. Okay, so outstanding checks total this and this, service and interest charges by this and this. So we will, when they give us all the amounts, we just create new accounts for all of these expenses, and we just credit cash for all of them.
Okay.
So this is what I meant when I said like they'll try to trip you up in the beginning of the case where like one transaction takes 3 hours, but at the end it's just like these are worth the same amount of points, but they just go by so quickly. So if you're ever in doubt, if you just get nervous in the exam and like you can't find an interest rate or like a notes payable rate, literally just go to your assumptions page and say I can't locate the information. I'm just gonna assume the debt was $1,000 and I'm gonna do the transactions based on that, and they will deduct like 1 point at most.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I heard they don't really care about numbers if the
process is right.
Yeah.
So if your debits and credits are right, they'll give you the points for that.
Mhm.
If you can't do like, if you, for instance, couldn't calculate the exact amount of like notes payable, you just don't have time. Just make it $1,000, make it easy for yourself. Like there's been times where I've literally written, like I think for my second midterm I wrote that like my trial balance for AD, I literally just said I'm assuming it's 10,000. I don't know what it is, and I just used that for the rest of the case because as was a very
Because you wanted to continue on,
yeah. And I literally lost like 1 point.
Wow.
So I would recommend like as long as your debits and credits are right, you can write your own case and like they will still give you some.
Okay.
Okay. So bank charge interest of 4.5%. WSI made a principal repayment toward the bank loan. So bank repayments, you're paying with cash. So the debits and credits for the bank payment will be you debit your bank loan and you credit your cash. But we know that they charge an interest of 4.5%. So we need to go down and we need to see how much the total loan is. So we see it's 25K. So we calculate the interest expense. So we calculate the interest expense because 9,000 was what they paid off. So the interest must have been accrued on the 25,000 plus the 9,000. So you add those two up, find out what 0.45 of that would be, and you debit your bank loan, debit your interest expense, and you credit cash for the whole amount because you paid the principal and the interest. Okay, so maintain a petty cash float, replenish this amount he used, 97. So what do you think the transactions for this would be?
Use credit out of petty cash and debit into the miscellaneous expense.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not too familiar with petty cash. I have to go over that.
Petty cash is the same as cash. So at the end
It's
of
for
the day,
short, like, term, right?
yeah. It's
Or like
kind of
smaller payments.
Yeah, it's like when you go out, for instance, like to a new city, you might have, most of us have like debit and credit cards, but you might have like $20 of cash just in case. So that's petty cash. Like it's not accounted for anywhere, but you have it. So you don't even have to create a petty cash account because it's like a cash float, so it's a temporary account, like allowance for doubtful accounts.
Yeah.
So that doesn't even necessarily, you can put it on your T account, nothing bad's gonna happen, but you could just use cash, like you could just credit cash and, credit cash and debit your miscellaneous expenses, should you so choose. Next he had spent 680 and was certain that further results would show from same thing, exact same thing. He simply just, you just credit your cash and you debit research expense. Now they paid a corporate tax of 20% payable in June of the following year. So we don't really need to pay this year's tax, we just need to calculate it. What we are going to do is we're going to go down and pay last year's tax. So, where's taxes payable? Oh yeah, income tax payable, 2350. So you just debit your income tax payable account so that you can zero it out and you credit cash for the full amount.
Okay.
That's it. We're officially done this case. Did you have any questions about this? I can go over closing entries as well in a little bit if you guys want.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
So the second half is a lot better than the first half.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It always tends to be like that. The first half, like, because they try to waste your time in the first half, so you like trip up and make silly mistakes in the last half, so you lose points everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I know it's very
So
sad.
how would you lose points in the second half if you continue, like, if you can't get one of the amounts and you like make
You
up your
wouldn't
own?
lose. No, yeah, you wouldn't lose points for that. But if you have like 20 minutes left for the entire section,
Oh, so time.
you might
wise.
trip up and
Yeah.
like make a mistake or put it in the wrong account, which
Uh-huh.
happens all the time because you need a ton of attention to detail.
Mm-hmm.
But that's pretty much how people do poorly on the exam. Is like they spend too much time
Yeah.
second guessing themselves in the beginning, and it's by design, obviously.
Uh-huh.
But by the time you get to the second half, you think that the first half was tricky, so there's no way these transactions could be that straightforward. So, like,
Yeah.
I've seen people like subtract the 97 from the 350 petty cash and try to debit cash and then credit petty cash and zero out the account, and it's like you're doing too much. Like you don't have to do all that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is 2257 for you. It gets a lot better in second semester. Like, do you guys have your feasibility groups yet?
No,
No,
not
we're
yet.
taking it, I think, at the end of October.
Okay, get on that soon because you don't want to get stuck in like the leftover group because that's never fun, and you're gonna have to work with them for 30% of your mark.
I think
And
it's 20 for us.
It's 20.
Yeah.
Is it 20?
No, I think fees is 30.
It's 30? No,
Yeah.
I swear I looked
Because
at
it's
the
this
bonus.
midterm's 20.
I'm pretty sure it's 20.
It
And
might
the
be
next
25,
one's 20.
20 I don't know.
I think it's 20.
Maybe it is 25, 25.
Maybe, but like, are your first two midterms 25?
Yeah, it's 20%.
Okay.
So
that's
the first
great.
midterm
Oh,
is
it's only
20%.
20?
The next one's 25.
This one's 20. The next is 25.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the fees is 20.
And then your final is
Because we have a
25?
test next month.
Yeah, what's
so
the final then?
It's only 25.
Oh, and then because class participation. I completely forgot, yeah.
How's participation going for you guys?
It's good. I just I've had so many midterms this week. I have not been caught up, so I haven't participated this class and last class because I don't want to participate. You know,
If you
just for
don't
like
know
a
it
silly
fully.
transaction if I'm not
No,
confident.
yeah. Or just
Because she
ask
can
a
always
question.
like even today she just did a transaction and then couldn't explain it.
Yeah,
And, I
know.
never want to be
What?
stuck in that position. So
No, it was terrible because I was like, I kind of did it and then I didn't know how I did it. And then when she asked me, she's like,
which transaction was it?
I
I
don't
don't
even
think so.
remember.
I think it's
like
the income
the
tax
one-
payable.
Oh
Yeah,
my
I think she was asking why I put it in like that one instead of putting it into cash, and I was like, I don't even remember. Like
oh no.
but I was like, oh, I can't find my notes on it. I don't even know what I said, but I was like, oh my gosh, of course.
Oh yeah, no. They try to put you on the spot, and it's like it's extra weird because when you ask them questions, sometimes they don't even know.
Mm-hmm.
She's always like, oh, like wait till the end to ask questions or like something, and I'm like, okay, thanks.
Yeah.
It's really odd because I used a TA for 257, and like my prof, love him, great guy, did not know business. Like he
That's what everyone
barely
says about
knew-
ours, Steph Tom. Everyone says that because she's a philosophy major, I
Oh
think.
my god.
So
God
everyone-
bless her.
I know everyone was saying she doesn't even know what she's talking about. And me and Chauncey have both kind of noticed some bias. She always picks the same two people.
It's
They participate,
honestly
like 10
super-
times a class.
Because like the
She won't
days
pick
I'm like
people who
so
haven't even
prepared,
participated.
I'll raise my hand for every single
Yeah.
question, and like she'll pick me maybe once.
And it's for like the
No.
smallest thing.
Yeah, it's for like the most annoying. Or like
Yeah.
sometimes like you just leave your hand up because you think you're not gonna get picked,
Yeah.
and like they catch you off guard. And
No,
you're like,
I've
what the hell?
No, I've noticed that like you can't raise your hand for every single one because
Yeah.
like she likes when like you randomly like raise your hand
Yeah,
more,
it looks
you know?
surprising.
Yeah.
You
Or
know
like
what?
she'll always be like, "Is there anyone new?" And then I'll be like,
Yeah.
I'm like, "Okay."
That's why like this first half, I feel like I just like got off on the wrong foot. But I'm just like happy like after this midterm, I'm just gonna like make sure.
Yeah. Also, we
Because
have like
I
reading
hate, like,
week
going
to
to
like.
class and not
or
being
something.
like confident or like being able to follow with what's going
Yeah,
on.
I know
hate
for
it.
sure.
So that's why I'm like we probably seem so dumb. We're like doing like
no, oh my
take
god.
us through the case for dummies. We don't know anything.
No, but you guys like honestly, like I'm no shade to anybody else, but like you guys like pick things up really quick. So I know you're smart, you know. Like,
I feel like with me, like I just need it to be explained to me for me to
Yeah.
get it. Like I kind of think I know what I'm
And,
doing,
like,
but
it
I'm never
sticks with you,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Like for me, like it all makes sense like after you explain it. And for like today, I didn't have much time before class, but I went to the library in the quiet study section. I was just going over like what we talked about yesterday. I didn't get through all of it,
Mhm.
but once I went over it, it made so much sense, and I was like, okay, like you know.
Yeah.
So I just need to do that more for this.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty much the perfect way to understand 2257. And like one tip I'd give you is when you walk into the exam, don't just put like the rules or like the formula. Try to pick actual numbers from a case that you've done and that's like burned into your brain. So that way, because 8C minus AD might be like which one of these is historical cost. So if you put down an actual formula, you might remember that like, oh, the price of this was 45,000, and that's what I put in. So it must be this as well.
No, yeah, I was talking to one of my friends who's in Ivy, and he's like, you can even put like a little example from like something from before, and like write the numbers out, and it'll help. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, 100% put examples in. Like, don't try to like fill up your cheat sheet with as much information as possible.
Yeah.
Because like you know
like what you
just
do.
stress you out more.
Yeah.
Or like you're like looking for like a formula for so long. Yeah.
Yeah, like some people make these like absolutely insane like color-coded cheat sheets, but like looking at them gives me a migraine.
Gives you like anxiety just staring at it. Yeah.
It's like, can I just submit this instead of the exam? Like, because they work on it like an actual project.
Wow, yeah.
But yeah, try to keep your cheat sheet pretty chill. Like you don't need to fill up every like little ounce of space. Okay, let's go over the closing entries now.
Okay.
So, do you understand what is meant by closing entries?
It's just like the final numbers, right? Like the important numbers after all of the
It's something
left
about
and
like
right side.
the end of the year, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so T account is the statement of cash flows.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a temporary account. It's a snapshot of the business for one point in time. So when you move everything to the income statement, you have to zero everything out so that, in theory, it's clean for the next year. So some opening balances will carry over, like income taxes payable, for instance, stuff like that. But your statement of cash flows is just, it's a current account. So you have to zero everything out. So all you need to do is go through your T charts and see whatever like titles you have, and you need to do the opposite. So you need to like total all of them up, and like for instance with sales revenue, we credit the whole account for the 56 in the beginning, 568 I think. Then every like all of the debits and credits later, we get like an ending balance, and we need to debit it for that whole amount so the account is zeroed out. So all closing entries are is we're going through every single line item. So yeah, we have sales revenue, like interest revenue, we usually would credit this. Sales returns, we debit this, we're going to credit it. We debit discounts, we're going to credit it. And you just go through every single, like I've listed out all of the accounts for this case, so feel free to like verify that you have the same accounts as well. But all I'm doing is I totaled everything up on my T chart, and I did the opposite of the side that was on. So whichever side had the positive balance, like if the debit side had the positive balance, I'm just going to credit it to make sure it evens out. That's it. That's all closing entries are. Now, at the end of everything, you're going to get an income summary. And the income summary is going to be the net value of your sales minus the net value of your expenses. Because that's what an income statement is, it's profit and loss. So you take that amount, that's your net income, and you multiply that by 20%, and that's your next year's income taxes payable. So the bottom two will give you your income statement, and the top two will give you your...
I know this. Income statement. Is it financial statement? No.
Balance sheet, yeah. Statement of financial position, yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. So if they tell you to do construct a statement of financial position, you just do that. If they tell you to do closing entries, you do income statement. If they tell you to do tax, you do income statement. If they tell you to do profit and loss, you do income statement. If they tell you to make sure that the assets and liabilities of the business are matched, then you do the balance sheet. Like they'll tell you to do it in a bunch of ways. So I'd say go through all the cases that you have and highlight all of the things that they've told you, because I cannot tell you how many times like I've seen kids like just construct an income statement when they ask for a balance sheet in like a twisted way, just because they were so used to doing income statements. So make sure that you understand what they're asking you to do, and if they ask you to do only closing entries, then like if they ask you to like do all the closing entries, then you have to do both. Like income statement and balance sheet, but they probably won't ask you to do that for the exam.
Do you think they'll ask us to do adjusting entries?
I don't. It's they might give you like a little one, like they did in this case, like the 717 one, but nothing more like serious than that.
Okay.
Sounds good.
The other thing they won't give you is also like, I would recommend asking your prof this, because they will tell you. they'll probably hold like a Q&A session or something like that, or like office hours before the exam. So I'd say like go and check if it's a bank case or if it isn't, because if it's a bank case then you won't have inventory, you won't have depreciation. 99% of the time they won't give you a bank case. They gave them one last year because everything was online and they wanted to like make it hard for them. But 99% of the time they won't give you a bank case, so you can safely assume that there's going to be no reconciliation and there's going to be mostly just inventories, a lot of depreciation, probably some ARAP.
Okay.
So it's going to be very, very close to this case, the exam.
Okay.
So if you can do I mean, I would honestly say that this case is harder than the exam, because like this 4 hours isn't enough time to get through all of this, like, and still get your numbers right. Because like it took us 2 hours to get through this case, and I like did the solutions beforehand.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really not possible to do it in 4 hours. So they will probably like, if they give you, for instance, like if they give you
Even if you know like exactly what to do.
It's like you could honestly there are people that get hundreds, right?
Yeah.
So and like their parents and grandparents have been accountants and it's in their blood.
Yeah.
So like those people exist, 100%.
Most
like
aren't them though.
exactly, and it's like good for them, but you know, this is an intro to business class, so if they give you like inventory that's this detailed, and they give you a purchasing schedule, they probably won't give you Exhibit 2 with all of the exchanges and like the AR manipulation. If they give you that, they won't give you inventory that's this detailed. They might just give you this stuff without the exhibit, and they might say like calculate the ending balance of inventory. So it won't be this detailed, but you'll still have to do like FIFO, LIFO. Likewise with long-lived assets, they probably won't give you this much stuff, and also if they give you long-lived assets, they won't give you expenses. So this was just a very like heavy case in terms of like every single thing was covered, but it's good for practice. Which also means that if you can do all of these, like if you can understand all of these transactions and you can write all of them out, and I would highly, highly recommend going through this as if it were an actual exam case. And if you can get through all of this and your answers are like perfectly right, you can feel confident in knowing that nothing that wasn't mentioned in this case will be in the exam, conceptually, because this covers everything.
I think she posted like some supplementary cases that are, you know, replicas similar to.
Which ones?
Let me see.
You can give me the name.
But I don't know if like she posted the solutions because I didn't see the solutions.
I think she said she was going to.
Well, it's coming up and there's no solutions.
She goes them tomorrow night. Like, good luck.
Oh my gosh. But there's like Sammy's Parking, Saskatoon Country Supplies, Mr. Fastball, Blend Pro Distributors. Distributors and Bird's Eye View Energy Vending.
Oh, Bird's Eye View, that's a famous one.
Are they like good
practice?
Yeah.
I'd say so, yeah. Like
right now I'm thinking like,
can I take a look at the cases, the ones with the important, because some of them might be like pretty soft. Okay, so Mr. Fastball, that's one. Mr. Fastball's good. Energy Vending, that's a good one as well. Saskatoon Country Supplies, I haven't seen that. Do you mind if I open these just to see what concepts they have? Okay. Sammy's Parking. Oh, I think these are solutions. Yeah, these are tutorials.
I didn't look at them properly.
Yeah, so
are they
tutorials?
solutions?
Yeah. So
they're tutorials of how to do it?
Yeah. So they walk you through the whole case.
So then there's no practice.
No. I mean, not really.
Yeah. So it's just the Wilshire. Do you think any from the casebook?
From the casebook, Pogola, I'd say familiarize yourself with it because it's a little tricky.
Yeah.
Like with the checks and stuff. So if they give you a check schedule, for instance, like you kind of have to back engineer what check 41 and 28 will work because they didn't actually give that to you.
Oh yeah, I remember going through that in class and I was so confused about like how they're getting some of the checks. Like let me open it up.
So I think over that to understand like how you account for checks that aren't given to you. So you have to kind of like figure out which ones they're talking about. Bit kind of counterintuitive, but you know. And
Especially because some cases have so many checks, but then like most of them they don't even like really mention.
yeah, no, checks are definitely checks are kind of wild.
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna have like the hardest part right now, like thinking about it, is knowing like when, like, you know, what sentence, like when you should go and check what exhibit, because it doesn't tell you, right? Like,
Okay.
for some of the numbers, like for Wilshire, let me see.
Yeah, is there anything in Wilshire that didn't occur to you? So
Yeah,
if you
there was
have-
a couple, and I was like, wow.
okay, there's
So
so
much
much
more
more
work
words
than
that
it's-
give you like an indication as to when to go check. So I'll let you know how to like look out for them. But in any case, I would say the second you get your case, take your balance sheet exhibit or your income statement exhibit. They'll give you one. Rip it out and just like write down all of your opening balances.
Oh yeah, it'll be easier with all the papers laid out.
Yeah. But 100% of the time, especially for your liabilities, write down every single receivable payment you have. Put that into your opening balances right away.
Uh-huh.
Any depreciation, any AD, put that in right away.
Oh, the bird's eye view and all that are in our casebook, okay. So I'll do that.
Oh, so those are the solutions.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Perfect. Let me see, where is it? Okay. So for example, like the, let's see, let me find it. I don't know if I could pull out any specific examples, but just, you know, knowing when you have to look at a different sheet
Yeah.
and it's not just in what information they give you.
Right, okay, I can go through the whole case if you want really quick, and I can tell you like what words to look out for that tell you what
Oh
transaction
yeah,
you
that'd
need
be
to do.
perfect.
Yeah.
And also for, how do you pronounce it? Pergola?
Pergola, yeah.
Pergola? Let me find it.
Pergola is what I meant when I said they won't give you a case like that unless it's a bank case. So, which is very, very unlikely because they can't ask you anything. There's not like 4 hours worth of stuff in a bank case.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they might ask you for like one reconciliation, but again, unlikely. But okay. Just to go through.
Yeah, I'll just text it to you because I don't
Okay,
really remember
yeah.
right now.
Yeah, no, it's. I'm pretty sure it was check 39 and 28, or like 41 and 28.
Yeah,
something
like two
that.
of the checks I was so confused.
Because
with,
they
like,
were the
where I got
outstanding
it.
checks, and then you didn't know where to subtract them from. I'm pretty
Like,
sure.
I was just confused because I didn't know how they got like certain checks. Because I kept on like going through it, like
Yeah.
really trying to understand, and I was really confused. But I'll just text you about it because I have to go through my notes and see what I wrote about that. But I wanted to ask, do you think 2257 was easier online last year? Because
no,
people-
oh my god.
Because you had it on your screen, right? It was so much easier to like screenshot whatever. So I don't know
It
if
was,
that would
Maybe
be
notes wise, yeah.
It was easier to learn, but it was a lot harder. Also, like the slides were different. Like they didn't give them the solutions on the slides; they just gave them the steps.
Oh.
So the prof would like and if you screen record, as I was telling you, like
How do they know if you screen record?
Zoom snitches.
Really?
Does that do that?
Yeah.
Because haven't you screen recorded so many? I
Like
didn't
you
know.
can screen record, and most of the profs don't care. Like 99%.
So what if you screen record through your laptop, like, because not through like the Zoom thing?
Oh yeah.
Because then they wouldn't know,
You
right?
can
Yeah,
screen
they
record
probably
on
know.
Zoom. Oh, I don't. Can you?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah,
you
you
can?
can on Zoom. Yeah.
I
So
know
I,
that.
if they were recording on Zoom, then
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what it, yeah, and like, you know, they get like a complete like transcript of all of your chats or all of your private messages. So if you were like,
oh, is that true?
yeah, because
Wow.
again, like now, like I TA for this MSc course.
I always hear that, but I never knew if it was true.
It is because
Wow.
anytime it records, like automatically syncs to the
So
Zoom
any
file.
private chats you
Yeah,
can
all
see.
of it.
Wow, it's not really
Oh,
private.
no.
I feel like last year everyone just like did exams on Zoom.
Yeah,
It was
no,
bad.
oh my God, people
Yeah, I would
are
not
so
trust
angry
even if
with
they
prof.
couldn't see, like, talking badly about the prof
No,
on private chat. Like, go do it on messages.
Do it
like,
on
why would you do it on
messages.
Zoom?
Especially because
Like,
it's
that's
like your
risky.
Western Zoom
I
account.
know,
Yeah.
I know. It's like, I know, oh, by the way, Pergola's in sheet 1 if you want to go over the solutions for that.
Oh yeah.
That'll probably help.
I just have to go over like all those cases. Like I'll do it myself and then
So you said Pergola isn't likely to be on the exam?
No, it's very unlikely because
It's also a very short one, I think.
yeah, it's very short because that's all you can do for bank transactions because like beyond that, it's like beyond the scope of 2257 to give you more intense bank stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, it's very unlikely that they'll give you anything. They might give you like a little thing like we saw today. And they might say like, but like they won't give you any checks because that is like full reconciliation. Okay, so let's go through Wilshire. When you're in doubt, like 90% of the time you should be able to move through things chronologically. So if you are in doubt about a number, 99% of the time it's just in the order that the case flows.
Okay.
So credit terms, we note these down. Then we know that their gross sales total this much, and this whole section we don't have to look at anything because we have the sales numbers.
Yeah.
So going to exhibit maintain a detailed list of information. See exhibit 2 was outstanding from accounts receivable. So this means that the ending balance of our accounts receivable was 38 grand. So we go to exhibit 2. And when we see accounts receivable, we're going to go down to the balance sheet whenever they talk about anything outstanding, and we're going to look at accounts receivable, allowance for doubtful accounts. So we know that AFDA has this opening balance, so we're going to put that in right away. And we should, while we're at it, we should also put notes receivable, interest receivable, inventory, prepaid insurance, prepaid rent. We need to put all of these into our opening balances. Next up, we have this. We're going to put these into our opening balances as well because they're all assets. And these as well. Pretty much all of these, except common stock and retained earnings, go on your opening balances. So once we've kind of wrapped up exhibit 2, when we did all of this maths, this is pretty much like we only have to refer to exhibit 2 in the balance sheet for these two because and we know that because we're talking about accounts receivable, so we want to go verify that information, and they give us exhibit 2. So next up, when it comes to inventory purchases, and we know that we have an exhibit for it. As you're going through this, there's probably not going to be very many numbers. If they've given you an exhibit, they're not going to give you numbers in the case. So, do you want to quickly skim through this section and let me know if there's anything that you're confused about and you're not sure where you're going to get it from?
So just in general, I think I'm a little confused with FOB destination, FOB shipping, and like that whole like merchandising inventory,
Yeah.
and how like that happened. Like I did take notes in class. Let me just pull it up, but yeah, like I have like the calculations and everything of how they got it over here. So like you don't have to go over like every detail, but just kind of like a general idea.
Yes, absolutely. So, FOB shipping point and FOB destination basically just refers to when we gain control of goods, but we don't really have to worry about that in this case because they give it to us like in the exhibit, and we're going to kind of add all of it together. But just for rule of thumb, if we scroll up, for instance, we know that all of their stock includes are shipped FOB destination, which means that we don't get paid until they confirm receipt of goods. So if it was FOB shipping point, as soon as we send it out, we can record it as revenue in our accounts. But for here, we're basically saying that we don't give up responsibility of the item until it reaches them. So the other thing about merchandising inventory is if we're looking at like returns in the schedules, all we need to do is move transaction by transaction. So I would recommend maybe making a couple tables, like, you know, you can have your TSS and then you could have what is it? There's TSS, there's Soccer City, and then
They
there's.
should provide markers for the whiteboard.
Yeah, I know they should. they usually do, but again, because it's COVID, they don't.
Oh.
But yeah, so I'd say like make a couple accounts. So there's is there anything else? The TSA and the Soccer. I think there's only two, no? Yeah. So there's two accounts. You have TSS and you have Soccer City.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd say put down all of your freight and duty details for both of them. And you just have that on your rough sheet to look at for good. And so over here we know that freight was $43 for Soccer City, so we're going to put 43. And then we're gonna put any credit terms that we have as well. So we'll put credit terms. And family discount of 7%, okay, and what else? And 6% duty. Okay. So now we have that. Now we have that set up. We're gonna go through it purchase by purchase. So we go to the exhibit and we see first time they bought this much at this much. We're gonna multiply that, put that in. This for purchase 2, like I would basically just like make 4 different rows. So I do like, and I do like P1, P2. I don't know, I write 2 upside down. There we go. And I do like P3, so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. And then I would just do the maths for all of them and I'd add all of them up. And I wouldn't even worry about.
You think putting like the general template on my cheat sheet, you think that would be helpful?
Can you understand this easily? Like if it'll confuse you, don't put it. If you think it'll help you.
Do you usually do it with the chart or do you have a different way of doing it?
I usually just do it like this because it's the most logical to me.
Okay.
So I know that when I'm putting all of this information here and right below that if I'm putting this down, I can just do the maths quickly. So I just first off I'll just find the total amount of money that I spent for each of them. Mm-hmm. Then I will, for each order, I will add up the freight and the duty if I need to do that. Then that will give me a new price.
Yeah.
For each purchase. And then I'll go and I'll see if I got any discounts. So I'll subtract those and then I'll get like a trial balance for each purchase, P1, P2, P3, P4. Oh. And on top I will write the total amount of units. So if this was like 321, and then this was 617, and I'll just do that for each. And then if there's any returns, I'll subtract that and I'll put that up here as well. So I know that at the end of the year, as I'm doing the math, so if I'm doing like discounts, I'll leave it the same. The second I do a return, I'll subtract the monetary value from here and I'll also subtract it from here. So I know that this number on top pertains to how much we currently have in this account.
Yeah.
And then that's pretty much it. So we've accounted for freight, duty, discounts, and returns. That's it. So
do you need the total net purchase?
You do, because
that's a total. Yeah.
Once you have your P1 to P4, we know how much to put in inventory. So the net amount from each of these, I'll just take that directly and I'll put that into inventory. I won't even have to think about it again, right? And now that I have the numbers on top, the updated numbers, it's going to be easy for me to find the unit price of each shoe. So let's go back to the 400, 200 example. So let's say I started off with 400 and I ended up with, is that 2? No. Okay, I ended up with 200. So I'm going to scratch this out, and I know that no matter what happens to these shoes at the end of the day, the end price that I get, if I divide that by 200, I know that I will get,
it's fine, you know it's a
we understand it, yeah.
Upside down writing is not my forte. But anyway, now that we know that that's 200, I will be easily able to get the unit price, and that's going to be important for an inventory valuation, because it's very seldom going to be like, right at the end of purchase tree, like I have exactly that many pairs left, so I can, airdrop the entire amount from the inventory system. So I'm gonna have to calculate the unit price, and then I'm gonna have to see how much each shoe costs, and I'm gonna multiply that by the number of shoes that I think I have left from this purchase bundle in my inventory. Right? So that's pretty much it. That's that entire section, and you can do it in 2 tables.
Okay.
And what else? I don't think there's anything else for inventory really. It's the reason like that table is very concise and helpful, but I find it a bit unclear during exam times because like it confuses me a little bit.
Yeah,
like, I go a bit cross-eyed looking at it.
Yeah.
So I just personally like to spread out all of my information.
Yeah, I feel like this would probably be more better for me too.
And it's of course, and it's also gonna be like in terms of if you have a bunch of inventory stuff, like they don't care about what you do on your rough book. They just want the final answers on the thing. But if you put this on your exhibit, chances are that you're not going to reconstruct this on the exam. So if they can see the more clearly TAs can see your steps, the more marks they can give you. So if I see that you've registered that there's 4 different purchases, that table doesn't tell me that. So even if you mess up here and like you put 617 over here instead of here, I'll still know what you were trying to do, and it just makes more honestly, don't be afraid of like writing notes to your TA. Like I cannot tell you the number of times I've seen like a student write a note and be like, listen, I was really stressed out.
Oh really?
Yeah. They were like, I couldn't do this inventory calculation. I forgot the maths for it, but like I realize my mistake now. This should have been 3% instead of 4%. And then like the prof is like, yeah, like if they realize it, and they just didn't do the numbers, like that's fine. So you barely deduct any points from them at all.
Wow.
That's so nice.
So yeah, so like, I mean, it depends on your TA as well, but like every time that I've seen that, like I've tried my best to like hit the marks, and like most profs are very receptive, especially during the first exam, right? Because like for a lot of people in university, it's the first time they're gonna do a 6-hour exam, so 4-hour exam.
Yeah, it's my first time.
Like there's no way I could write it on
Especially-
Saturday because I literally like in class I cough so much and it's so embarrassing.
No.
Yeah. And I've been like putting off the doctor so I could go to class.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go to the doctor tomorrow. Like I have to. On my birthday.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Is it your 19th birthday?
20th.
Oh my
Yeah.
god, are you excited?
Honestly, it doesn't feel like it's my birthday tomorrow.
Your birthday Saturday.
Yeah, it's Saturday for anyone who asks.
Are you like sick, or are you just like?
So I've been sick for like 3 weeks, which is crazy.
Did you get tested?
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, it's just really bad. Like I just feel like I'm burning up sometimes. I've just been coughing, and it's horrible. But yeah, like I've been taking Buckley's and Neocitrin, all of that, and it always works. But I think I have like an infection or something, so it's really bad. And I know, like, as much as I don't like my prof, she has to understand why I'm self-reporting it too, because, like, she can hear me coughing in class too.
Yeah. Especially with like COVID, like I feel like any sicknesses except COVID are taken seriously. So if you're not dying, like you don't need to be intubated, they're like, well, just like take an aspirin, call it a day, like sleep it off, drink some soup.
No, 100%.
And it's like, well, I'm.
Like, I cannot imagine doing a 4-hour exam
No,
like
oh
this.
my god, yeah, no. That one of the people I tutor, like she has accommodations, so she's gonna write a 10-hour exam.
It's 10?
It's 10, yeah, like she's.
Because it's 2.5 more, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh my
Do you
gosh.
think one of our friends was telling us that the time adjustment makes the biggest difference? Do you think that's true?
I honestly think it depends. Like I think 10 hours is overkill. I think 5 hours would make a difference, but I don't think 10 hours would make a difference unless you really need it. And that's kind of the reason they give you like that much time. Like they can't just give you like a temporary increase. So you have to like. When it comes to 10 hours, I think you go insane looking at an exam sheet for like 10
I feel
hours.
like at a certain point, like I either know it or I don't.
Yeah, no, she was saying it in a way, whereas like that extra time.
It does help though.
Oh, it does, you think?
It definitely does, yeah, because I have ADHD, so like I was offered accommodations, and I had them for not 2257 but 1220, and it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And like I only had them second semester, and yeah, like it was so different. Like,
Oh wow.
but
I don't know. I feel like I've never taken a 4-hour exam, so I guess I just have that mindset where it's like it's 4 hours. Like you know, like I can do it in 4 hours in so much time, right?
Yeah, no,
But
I know, but I think it's because only when you get to like the 3.5-hour mark do you completely understand what the case is trying to tell you.
Oh, that's the worst. And then you're just like cramming.
Yeah.
That's like me always. Like I feel like I'm like so lost, and then you get it, but then you're like, oh my god, there's like 20 minutes left.
Yeah,
Oh my
exactly.
God.
So it's for those situations where like having that extra couple hours. So I didn't get 10 hours. I only got 6 hours because at that time I think I only got like 25% more time or something like that. So I think I got like 5.5 hours or something like that. Made the biggest difference, even when it came to like writing stuff out, because when you guys will only have to do essays in second semester, but especially for your final, you have to like write out a decision, and the decision's gonna be like 4 or 5 pages, and by the end of it, you're just drawing lines. You're just like, I hope my TA understands what I'm trying to communicate to him, like spiritually or something.
No, yeah.
But
Sometimes
you said that you found it easier second semester?
I found it easier because I had more time, and I could like take my time. And I could like.
Oh,
really,
is it
like,
because of the
write
time
out.
and not the content?
No. The content was the same.
Oh.
The content was actually harder, I'd say, because.
I know, that's what I thought you meant, like, you found the content
No,
easier.
no,
I was like,
no.
oh, I haven't heard that before, what?
No. The content was a lot harder, but like because I got like the 25% more time. It was like that was like I'd say that's like the sweet spot in terms of like how much extra time helps.
Yeah.
But that being said, like the process of getting accommodations is like really low.
Oh my god, I'm actually looking into doing that.
It's
obviously not for this exam, but maybe the
Yeah.
next one. But it's like so confusing. I
It's
don't
so
even know where
hard.
to start.
And the thing is that once you get accommodations, if you finish your exam before that time, they won't give you accommodations anymore. So like if you finish
What?
the exam during 4 hours, yeah, like and in Ivy like you don't get accommodations.
Oh. Wait, so like if you finish at the normal time, they'll be like, oh, you don't need it?
Yeah, pretty much. Like there's a
Maybe
chance
I'll
that
just
they'll
wait,
do
like
that.
if I get it, an extra 2 hours to
Stop.
go around.
No, yeah, that's what a lot of people do sometimes.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
But yeah, but it's really complicated. So what I had to do was I had to get, like, and I had a diagnosis like way back. Like I've been medicated a couple times, but then I had to get a diagnosis from a Western counselor, and then they had to refer me to a psychiatrist approved by Western, and I had to pay a bunch of money to take a bunch of tests.
Oh.
Yeah, like they tested me, and then after that I had to get prescribed medication, and I had to take the medication, and I had to get a refill on the medication,
Oh my god.
and then have like 8-week like touch points. And after I did that was when they gave me accommodations, and I had to do, and like they were like, the second year if you want them again, you're gonna have to do all that again. And I was like, I'll just try it in 4 hours. It's okay. Like
I know.
It's easy.
After hearing that, I think that was the tipping point because it was already so confusing. Like I've been asking around, but yeah, honestly, I'll just do it in 4 hours. Whatever. I don't want to go through
Honestly,
all that.
just see how this exam goes
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
If you feel like you have enough time or not.
Yeah, if you need it, like you can absolutely get one. But the thing is also that like, do you have, like if you don't mind my asking, do you have a disability?
I feel like I have ADD or and anxiety.
Okay.
And I know my friend got it for anxiety.
Yeah, you can.
I definitely have anxiety, so.
Okay. So if you can get a diagnosis and you can get like a medication prescription and you can like prove that you've been medicated for a while, then they might give you.
Oh, for a while? Because I have it for me, like, you know, like it doesn't really affect my day to day.
Yeah, so without an official diagnosis, I don't know if you can.
Because I know my family doctor would probably.
Right, yeah, they would probably be willing to
Yeah.
give you an accommodation, like a diagnosis.
Yeah.
But and again, I didn't go through a family doctor, so the process might be different if you have one. But I would honestly say that mine was very speedy relative to the people that I've spoken to. Because I only had to do all I had to do was meet with the psychiatrist. Like in reality, all I had to do was meet with the psychiatrist, do the tests, which they're expensive. They're like $800.
Oh
my
okay, I'm not
gosh.
doing it.
Wow.
That's crazy. I thought when you said expensive, I thought maybe like 140.
No, it's like 800, and then the medication costs money too.
Oh my god.
Especially because we're on a university campus, I was prescribed Vyvanse and it cost me $60 each time, and I had to do that twice for the eight week point checkup. And it was it was very helpful to me because obviously it was very nice to have that.
Yeah.
But still I only got it just barely in time for second semester, and I started beginning of first semester, so maybe they've improved their process. I sincerely hope they have. if you feel like you need it after this exam, I would completely encourage you to do it. But also, like, they're kind of snarky with it, like, because if you have accommodations, your papers get checked separately and stuff. So they might. I'm not saying they are, but like, at least when it comes to Ivy, like, they really. The girl that I was talking about, like the girl who writes 10-hour exams. Every time she goes to get accommodation, they like let her know that they won't give her those in Ivy, and they'd be like, oh, last time you finished a couple like hours earlier. If you keep doing that, you won't get accommodations again. And they're just like really mean about it.
They are. No, even for one of my classes, I had an exam last week, and like the whole class got their marks back, but the class that did the accommodated exam still haven't gotten their exams back. So and we did it all the same day. So like I don't get it.
No, yeah, sometimes like the people that write the makeups get their exams back.
I wrote the makeup, but my friend wrote the accommodated exam on the actual day, and she hasn't gotten hers back yet, and I got mine.
Wow.
So I was like, what the heck?
Really discouraging students from getting accommodations.
It's just weird. I'm like, don't the same TAs mark it?
They don't.
That's so weird.
They have I've marked accommodated exams, and like the criterion for marking is so much stricter because they're like they have more time. That like, for instance, like, if you can't read their handwriting, like if it's not neat, you deduct points, which like I've never done that for anybody else.
Oh, I could.
And it's like, what if they just have bad handwriting? It's so weird.
Oh no, that's the worst.
I know, and it's like each department differs. Like for humanities, like they won't do that, but for business,
no, you can just like see my handwriting on exams. It's so neat in the beginning, and then at the end when I'm rushing, like it's so like crazy.
Oh my god, 100%.
Yeah.
Okay. Long-lived assets. I'm just trying to go through if there's anything important in the case that I need to mention. Okay, yeah. One thing that can be confusing is like wages and salaries. Mm-hmm. So, if there's nothing over here for like wages payable, I'd say, and there's no information over here for like, if there's no information over here, like when they give you vague information like this, like they hired a store manager on Jan 1st for the Oakville store sales clerk was also hired, you might think that you have to manually do the wage calculation over here, but if they don't give you the information in the footnote, they don't give you any information in the exhibits, you can safely assume that the next number you see is the only number you need to mess with.
Okay.
So it says salaries for fiscal 2010 total this much, you just put that in. Another place that might be confusing as to whether you have to do something payable or something like you're going to credit cash is to see whether the previous year has had any payables. So the previous year had a wage payable, and it says as of December 31st, the driver had not been paid. You have two clues. Number one, we know that we have a history of payables, like putting stuff in wage payable and paying them the following year. And second, as of December 31st is all we really care about. So if he's paid on Jan 1st, we don't care about that. So look at the dates and look at the exhibit to see if there's a history of certain behavior. So likewise with taxes, it says June of following year, which is a hint itself. But then if you see that there's taxes payable, you can put two and two together and be like, this company only pays it. Like they always defer their taxes to the following year. But if you don't see any taxes payable and it says June of following year, then you still just do the typical payables process. And you just assume that like it's been, and in closing entries you'll account for it at the end of the year. So when you do closing entries, you pay it off because there was no payable carried forward. And they might trick you like that on the exam, so just write a little note and say, I don't notice any payables, and even though these will be paid, these are set to be paid the following year, I'm assuming that they're going to set aside a certain amount of money, so I've just made the closing entries here, and they can't dock you any points for doing extra work. But they might give you extra points. That's another thing. There's like a couple places where you can get like bonus points on the exam. Typically it should equal 100, but because transactions can be a bit confusing, if you, for instance, like all of this petty cash stuff, like it's collectively, even though it's like 6 transactions, it's collectively only worth like 4 points. But if you do all 6, you'll get an extra point. So try very hard to do very, very well on the end transactions because they'll be very, very easy and very, very easy to get a good score.
You'll get an extra point if you do all 6?
Yeah, like all
Oh.
6 perfectly.
Oh, wow.
Because most people won't.
Well, yeah, it's
in this section.
definitely really hard.
And so there's been a lot of times where like people have messed up in the beginning with the inventory section,
Mhm.
and then when it comes to the end, they do everything perfectly and they still get 100 because like the
Oh.
logic follows through.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's very hard to write a case where every transaction is 1 point, right? Like it's almost impossible to write a case with exactly 100 transactions.
100 transactions is a lot too.
Yeah, and like I mean even if you do like debit and credit, like how are you gonna write exactly 50?
Yeah.
You know, so like the points aren't always I'm so sorry for being on my phone.
Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, I'm trying to think of anything else, but there really isn't anything that stands out to me. Did you guys have any questions?
I think I should pull up the case really quick.
Yeah, same.
So just like in general, not really specifically related to the case, but for FOB, like destination FOB shipping,
Mhm.
how does that affect, like, say it's destination, it's coming from out of the country or something? Like, how would that affect the the companies?
Right, so we don't record payment until it's reached us.
Reached it, yeah, okay.
But if it's like, let's say it's FOB shipping point from Alberta and we're in Vancouver, then if it's FOB shipping point and they notify us that it's left them, we immediately will credit cash and debit inventory right away. But then if it's from Alberta to Vancouver and it says it's reached Vancouver, like it's left Alberta on one day and then it's reached Vancouver like 5 days later. 5 days later is when we will credit cash, debit inventory.
And how do you know if it's like what's the proximity for it to be considered a destination versus not?
No. So they'll tell you that it's reached. So when
In the
they tell you that it's reached you, that's when you do your credits and debits. But if it's FOB shipping point, as soon as the supplier lets you know that it's shipped, you do your credits and debits right away.
I don't know why I had some impression that it, like depending on where it was coming from, it would change. I don't even know. Also, I was like, what's the proximity? And you're probably so confused. So, yeah.
No, but you only have to worry about whether it's left them and
okay.
whether it's reached you.
Okay.
Also, I think she said like we're gonna get all the opening balances on the exam, right?
Oh yeah.
Did you say
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Most of the time you will. For stuff like AFDA, you might not because it's not a permanent account.
Yeah.
But most of the time you will get most of the opening balances.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you think there's gonna be as many entries as like this?
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
This is pretty,
It was a very long case.
Yeah, I mean, it'll probably be a little bit shorter than this,
Hopefully.
but it'll be pretty close to.
Okay.
Yeah.
It'll be pretty close. To
My friend who took it last year was telling me that she started looking and like relearned everything 4 days